Kia ora homa. On today's video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the casting process of my molds. Now, this was a special request from Creative Poodle, so thanks very much for asking the question. And basically what we're going to do is we're just going to look at how I cast my molds and then how I get them out and how I fix them up once they've come out of the molds. So if that seems like your sort of thing, stick around and I'll see you in the video. So we're going to cast 3 molds today just so you can see the process because they're all slightly different. These two are basically the same kind of a mold, they're just different shapes, but this one is a different one. This is the kind of all over 3-dimensional mold. Now, the first thing that we need to talk about is if you're going to do this kind of mold making, especially where you're casting using hot glue, you've really got to think about using high volume. And what I mean by that is you need a hot glue gun that is going to give you a lot of volume of glue. I have used these little ones in the past, and this little one works not so bad if you're making very small molds, or small castings I should say. But at a certain point, you're trying to force the hot glue out and the element inside the nozzle can't heat the glue up fast enough, and you end up breaking your hot glue gun quite easily. So you've really got to look after your hot glue guns and take it easy, but also it's better off to just use a high volume hot glue gun, and that's why I switched basically to these ones that have the really big chunky hot glue sticks. Now there is a downside to that. They don't offer a lot of colors in that kind of a hot glue gun. Basically you only ever get white, whereas with these ones they come in a plethora of colors, like this one in the moment, it's got like silver glitter in it, and also it's been mixed in with a bit of black, which kind of has a cool effect, and you can get some really cool other cool colors as well, fluorescent and all that kind of stuff. So if you wanted to go down the road of coloring an object that you're casting, which is probably what most people want to do because they don't want just clear white stuff, what I suggest is using your smaller hot glue gun to do the detail work and just get in all around the edges, and if there's any details like in the face there, you kind of can see it on my Heitiki casting, and then fill up the rest of the volume with the normal hot glue. So we'll start off with the Heitiki first. All you want to do with your mold is make sure that you get into all of the edges. I know it seems relatively straightforward and silly to even mention that, but it is important. It's probably important to go from the edge first as opposed to just filling up the middle. Eventually it will settle, but as the hot glue cools, it'll be less able to get into all those little edge parts. Now, as a rule of thumb, you can tell that the hot glue is set when it goes a cloudy color. So if you've never done like use hot glue to cast anything, or even use hot glue to glue anything before, you know it's kind of gone off or set when it goes like a cloudy smoky color. Well, it's like a more cloudy color, not smoky. So that's that one. Now I'll do this one next. This is slightly different. Now you think about how you've got to get in all the edges and stuff like that to get the finer detail and make sure it gets everywhere. It's even worse with one of these ones. Now this one is a dinosaur. This one works about 60% of the time, and it's all about making sure that you jam the hot glue gun into all of the edges, because over this side is a head and over this side is a tail. So you've got to make sure that you get the hot glue gun right in all those parts to fill up those pieces. And you've also not got to be too aggressive, because if you go too crazy filling up with hot glue gun, what happens is the hot glue explodes out of that orifice and blocks up any other part of the mold. Now I do mention in my the maker video for this molding process, don't worry too much about the heat of the hot glue gun. This particular silicone and you'll find it wherever you live in the world, because they're much of a muchness, will be able to handle up to 150 degrees Celsius. So that's, I think, a little bit less in Fahrenheit. I'm not sure what the conversion is in Fahrenheit. I live in a metric country, so I'm not sure how that works out. But yeah, what we're going to do now is we're going to let these set, and then we're going to come back and show you the molds. And while you're gone, I'm going to cast one of the parachutists as well. Okay, see you later. Okay, so our molds have set enough now that we can probably take them out. Now the next thing, I'm just going to unplug this and get that out of the way. Sorry guys. Now the other thing that I want to talk about is the tool that you use to trim your castings with. Now I used just one of these small Scotch craft knives. I find that it's a really good in-between between a X-Acto knife or a craft scalpel or a large craft knife. Now a large craft knife gives you lots of cutting ability on larger projects, but I can do almost the same job with this, but I can also do more precise things that an X-Acto knife can do. So it's the kind of the best of both worlds without being without doing the exact perfect job of either. And so I don't really need a big craft knife, but I also don't really need an X-Acto knife. So with this one here that I've made into a ball, I've just got to pull apart the zigzag cut and gently pull out my casting. And so, oh, that's a good one actually. So you can see there's the dinosaur shape. Now what I need to do is I'll have to cut away all the little blobby bits, and that'll really give me my dinosaur shape. Now you'll find too that if you've made your molds really well, those little blobby bits will just pull off really easily. You won't have to do much work at all. The things that do need the really precision cutting are like the little fiddly bits where there's like a join somewhere. So I also like to trim off the base plates, because this particular kind of a mold, and I've made like little green army men and stuff like that as well, they tend to have a foot plate attached to them, if that makes sense. So yeah, you have to trim all that stuff so it makes it look all neat and tidy. It's really important too to have a sharp blade. This isn't a very sharp blade, but that's okay. So that's the dinosaur, and it'll need some more trimming to get it into its perfect shape. But that's time consuming for what we're trying to show in the video here. Okay. Impression molds generally come out heaps better. All you've really got to do is trim the perimeter area of it. So I'm going to show you the hay tiki, because the hay tiki normally comes out pretty good each time. Oh, that's a nice one too. So that's my hay tiki. I'll try and move it around in the light so you can kind of actually see the impression there. And so with this one, all I want to do is like trim off these little rough edge parts here. So, you know, really straightforward. You might want to give it like with an impression mold too, because you think about it, it's in a dip, and so all that hot glue kind of forms a dip as well. So you might want to trim it so it's nice and flush as well, or you might want to give it a bit of a sand on sandpaper. Trimming's just as good, because I use this as prizes from my students at school. They don't really care too much that it's got, you know, that they just like the image itself. And the same applies to our parachutist. Now a parachutist is slightly different because he's got like a little eyelet at the top of his head to hold his skydiving harness. So that one needs to be heated up again and done like that. But you can see here that he'll just need trimming up along the sides. I probably pulled him out a little bit too early because I've got that, but that's an easy fix with hot glue because I can just warm it up and stick him back down. So that's basically the long and the short of doing your molds. It's really, you know, like hot glue is such a good material to cast with because it's so easy to work with. There are obviously a little bit of dangers because it's hot, but if you respect it and you work with it properly and, you know, don't go too crazy, Famous last words, but yeah, it normally works out pretty well. So thanks for watching. If you like that video, hit like. If you want to subscribe to the channel, hit subscribe, because we're always doing crazy things around here. But until next time, ka kite anō, and I'll see you next time on Mr. Ashley's Place.